everybody, and welcome back to the Tea and the Butty podcast with me, Dominic.
And me, Erica.
And on today's episode, we're going to be talking about British sitcoms. This is going to be like
This is a new series.
a new series, yeah, all about television.
Television series, yeah.
Yeah,
Television series. Ha
Ha ha! It's all about the different contrasts between American TV and British TV, and this is all about sitcoms.
Yeah, so this first episode is about sitcoms. Yeah.
Which are all British.
Well.
Yeah, they are. They were all remade over here. They are.
They're not.
Yes, they are. Every bloody one of them.
We'll start off talking about the ones that were remade.
Yeah.
But they're not all remade. We'll start off. We'll mention the ones that were remade, and then we'll do like rankers list top 10.
Yeah.
Best in Britain, best in America.
And then our top 5.
And then our top 5.
We've tried to whittle it down to 5.
Yeah, it was really
It was
difficult.
hard, yeah, it was difficult, especially for me, because there's so many good ones. But yeah, anyway, these are the British sitcoms that have been remade over here that you might not know.
You probably don't. Well, I'm going to say you probably don't because I don't, but because I didn't. But maybe you did. I don't know. Maybe you're much more aware of these types of things. Yeah,
I mean, when I came over, I was surprised to see how much had been remade over here, you know?
I couldn't believe it when you were telling me some of them. Oh, this is a remake of blah, blah, blah. I was just like, no, it's not. Stop making
Well, the
stuff
first one
up.
I've got up on here is Sanford and Son.
Yeah.
And you'd think that's not a remake.
Yeah.
How could that be a remake?
It seemed really original anyway.
Yeah. I mean, it is a remake. It's a remake of Steptoe and Son.
That was one of my grandfather's absolute favorite shows. I mean, the reruns were literally always on at my grandparents' house.
And Sanford and Son, it's the same premise. It's two rag and bone men, right? Two junkyard men.
Rag and bone, yeah.
Yeah, and father and son.
Yeah. Like
in the original. And they focused on race as well as class over here. That was the difference because there were two black actors.
Yeah.
And, the whole cast was black. Mostly.
Yeah.
I'm assuming. Whereas in the UK, it wasn't. It was a couple of white guys, but it was focused on the class system because they didn't have any social standing in Britain in those days. There was a huge divide of class.
Yeah.
So
in those days.
Well, it still is, but it's like it's not as bad as it used to be.
Yeah.
Because they were like junk men,
Yeah.
And, there was...
So let me ask you, in the British version, because one of the most famous things was the dad always clutching his heart and faking a heart attack. And he would say, oh God, what was his wife? Whatever his wife's name was. He put his hand up and he'd go, oh, I'm coming for you. I'm coming to you.
It was similar, but it was a similar thing. He'd always be trying to make his son feel bad.
Yeah.
It was played by the Albert Steptoe, the dad. Was played
Beatles
by
reference.
Yeah, Albert. He was played by Wilfred Bramble, who played Paul's grandfather in A Hard Day's Night.
Yeah.
And that's why there's so many references to him being very clean in the movie. Because
he's really dirty.
He's really dirty in the in Steptoe and Son, and his son was like, you dirty old man.
Yeah.
You dirty old man.
It's funny because,
Harry H. Corbett played his son.
I don't know who that is.
He didn't really make much of a splash over here. He's dead now, obviously they're both dead, but he didn't really make much of a splash over here. He was in a couple of films, but he was well known for playing Harry Steptoe.
Yeah.
The son. And his dad, his dad Albert was like, oh, Harold, I'm an old man, I'm having a heart attack, and I think he'd say, like, whoever his wife, I haven't watched the series. It came on in the 60s.
Yeah.
Started as a radio play, Galton and Simpson did it, and then it came on in the 60s. It was huge. Then it had like a break for a couple of years, and then it came back in the 70s all in colour,
Yeah.
But yeah, that's one of them. The Office, obviously. I'm not doing these like by what I've done, just The Office.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is The Office over here.
I think the most American people are aware that that's a remake.
They might not know that. I mean, they know that Ricky Gervais produced it, the Office over here, but they wouldn't be aware that he co-created and wrote and starred in the original.
I think they are. I think Ricky Gervais is so popular in America that he's made it well known.
Maybe,
you know what I mean? That this was a show we did in Britain, and now we're doing it again. Yeah.
I mean, they kind of like they started off. The Office over here started off as pretty much the same as the British version, and everybody was like, "Oh, I remember watching the first season and I wasn't impressed. I thought, oh, this is gonna tank."
We liked it though.
I thought it was gonna tank.
I preferred the first seasons of The Office, the American version, to later on. Later on, it went
on much longer than the British version, obviously, because for whatever reason, Ricky Gervais decided to end it right there. After like 2 seasons and then just do a Christmas special. It was kind of like Fawlty Towers. He wanted it to be like that, you know?
Yeah.
Because it was so popular in Britain. But how many seasons did it run for?
I don't know. I didn't
10 maybe? I don't know.
I didn't even think I watched half of it.
Everybody was, and I mean, it's hugely popular with, you know, with Americans and stuff, you know, the American version, you know. So, yeah, there's that. And I mean, you got Steve Carell, launched the career of Steve Carell anyway.
It's funny because, you know, you and I talk about, or we have talked about often, why they even remake these shows over here, why they feel the need to remake them. And I think it's just because the humor doesn't translate. That's not true.
The cultural references,
The references. Everybody thinks the humor doesn't translate. Everybody has this idea that British humor is too dry. It's dry. It's very dry. British humor.
Very dry. Very sarcastic. And, you know, very subtle and very twisted.
It's not very dry or sarcastic. I find British humor to be verging on slapstick more often than not.
Yeah, well, I mean, Mr. Bean. It's why Mr. Bean was so popular over here.
British comedy is very
one.
like in your face, like ha ha, wink wink, nudge nudge. Did you get that joke? Yeah. You know, I find it very obvious. I think it's more so the cultural references and just the language. Like we just don't know what you're talking about. You know what I mean? Like,
whereas we know what you're talking about, so.
Yeah.
It's like what we were talking about in the last
previous podcast.
The importing of British culture, and you know, it's not so imported after all. You know,
right? Yeah, yeah. No,
because people don't know what you're talking about, mate.
It's not.
You don't know what you're talking about.
The language. Yeah, the language is just like we just don't know your use of whatever the word is. It's not the same as our use of that word. It's like it doesn't make
nappies
sense.
And, you know.
Yeah, or slang phrases or cultural references.
Kushti.
You know, talking about somebody that the British public knows and we don't.
Yeah, like,
and
like
it's
a minor British
joke.
Celebrity. Yeah.
It's just like it just does not. We don't get it. We're just like, well, okay, we don't live in Britain. We don't get it. And that is because British culture is not imported as big as American culture.
No, because
you can listen to the previous podcast, by the way.
Go back and listen to it.
Go back and listen to it. Yeah, because we're just talking about that.
And it's funny because when I first came over here, I brought all my British comedy DVDs and I was showing them to Erica and her family. And, you know, they'd have to ask me several times, what does he mean by that?
What does that mean?
What does that mean? What is that?
Literally pausing it.
Pausing it, and so I could explain the joke, basically. And sometimes it would only be because I did research or I knew about that particular, because some of these shows are old, like Only Fools and Horses, and they'd make an obscure joke about something that was relevant in the 80s.
Right.
And it's not relevant in Britain anymore,
right.
You know, it's like an old joke. And it's like you'd have to be on the ball to really like.
Yeah.
No, and sometimes I wouldn't know. I'd be like, oh, I don't know what he was talking about there, but it was funny.
I mean, the thing
it was funny at the time, you know.
The thing is American television does the same.
Yeah, it does.
But it's because It's because Americanization is more imported than Britishization.
Yeah.
I didn't even know if that's a word.
Britanization, something. Yes.
No, you guys get news broadcasts. You hear a lot more of our news than we hear of yours, and all of that. All of this conversation belongs in the previous podcast, but
it's on this one too now.
Yeah.
And we don't care because we're taking over the world.
That's why we didn't. But that's why we don't get the humor, because it's like we don't know what's going on in your land. You know, it's like
maybe there was a terrorist attack in London.
We didn't.
That's it. That's all they get over here.
Yeah. And so
the Manchester bombings. You know, it was like, oh, that was a big thing because Ariana Grande was at Ariana Grande's concert. You know.
Yeah. We only get the biggest headlines. So it's like if it was a minor headline for that day and they mentioned it in a sitcom and everybody in Britain knew because it was a headline over there, but we don't know. So it's like they're all laughing and we're just like whoosh straight over our heads, you know. Yeah. So I think that's why they have to remake it, because we're just not going to get the language and the references.
Yeah.
And it's that more so than the dry humor. Oh, Americans don't get subtle or sarcastic or dry humor. I really resent that, actually. I really resent that. It's like, no, British humor is not so subtle and dry and sarcastic. It's quite obvious, really. I mean, it is.
Thank you, Erica. Thank you very much for your opinion piece there.
Don't at me.
Don't at you. Don't at her. At me. Another one is Men Behaving Badly, which, you know, didn't last too long over here, but it went on for a while in the UK. Rob Schneider was in the one over here. And, you know, it's just basically it was about men behaving badly. The original British one had Martin Clunes, and in the original one it was Harry Enfield playing his flatmate, Dermot. Yeah. And then he left and was replaced by Neil Morrissey, and it became huge.
Something like that show, I would think would translate.
It's men. It's like men. It was like men relationship stuff, and it did. I think it ran for like 2 seasons, but then it was cancelled. Yeah. And the American version, yeah, because the British version I think went for like 6.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and you know it launched the career of Martin Clunes, who went on to do stuff like Doc Martin, which is a comedy drama.
Yeah.
And you know he's in a sitcom now. He's in a BBC sitcom called Warren.
Doc Martin, a ripoff of Northern Exposure, by the way.
Yeah, I mean that the premise is, yeah, I guess so, yeah. Yeah. But I mean, Northern Exposure, was that a comedy?
That was in the 80s. It was like a
comedy drama. Yeah. So yeah, a lot of people noticed the similarity between Doc Martin and Northern Exposure. Anyway, another one is One Foot in the Grave,
which is one of my favorite British sitcoms.
Yeah, which is because Erica likes old people. So it was a show about old men. She loves old men, and she thinks they're so cute. You know, I love old men. They think they're so cute. And so I showed her that with Victor Meldrew.
He was cute, and he still is.
Yes, and she loved it. He's a grumpy old man. And it was remade over here as Cosby.
Which I remember. Oh, sorry. I remember that. Because I remember when they were doing the... Do you happen to have a date for that? Do you know when it came out?
Cosby came out, I think, the late 90s, or maybe...
Early 2000s?
Early 2000s, something like that.
I remember
because One Foot in the Grave started in the early 90s. It started like maybe late 80s, early 90s, and ran until like the year 2000. I think that was the last episode.
Oh, okay.
So they remade it almost as soon as it finished in Britain with Bill Cosby.
And it's so good. It's about a grumpy old man who everything...
Yeah, One Foot in the Grave is not Cosby.
Everything goes wrong for him. And he's always getting blamed for things.
Basically, his Victor Meldrew has become... As I said, he's entered the lexicon of British culture now. Yeah. If anybody's having a moan or a rant about something in the paper or something like that, there's like, oh, Victor Meldrew's back at it again.
Yeah.
You know,
I heard out your window one morning, didn't I?
Yeah.
Oh, is it right, Victor Meldrew, or something like that? He's being a Victor Meldrew this morning or whatever.
Yeah, no, it was something. Yeah, I was asleep, and you told me when I woke up. He was like, "Oh, there was these two girls walking past, and one of them said to the other, it's like, oh, I know your dad. He's like Victor Meldrew, isn't he?
Yeah,
he's always moaning,
something like that." But yeah, I remember when Cosby came out. I remember seeing the previews because I was like, what is this? Is this a continuation of the Cosby Show? Because it was Bill Cosby and Felicia
Rashad.
Yes. And they were playing husband and wife, and the show was called Cosby. So I was like, is this like after all the kids have moved out and this is like them? But in the show, they, again, just like in the Cosby Show, their name was something else in the show, I think.
I don't know if it wasn't Huxtable.
It was just thoroughly confusing. No, they were not the Huxtables. And I remember just being totally confused and like, what? Why would they do this? Because the Cosby Show was so huge. They were known as the Huxtables. It's like, why would they get a couple that we already knew as a married couple on television to play a different married couple?
The other one is Man About the House, which was remade over here as Three's Company, which was another
one that I was like, what? You are making this crap up.
I was like, no, it's
Bryn did not invent everything, okay? They just didn't.
Two girls and a guy in the house.
Yeah.
And, they had the landlords who were the Ropers. George and Mildred. I don't know if they were called George and Mildred over here.
George, maybe. George Roper, I can't remember.
Yeah, but anyway, it was, another one. I mean, I never really watched it.
I watched Three's Company. Three's Company was a great show. I mean, I was not around originally for it, but I watched it in reruns, okay?
Yeah, it was remade in the late 70s, because, Man About the House was early 70s.
Was he pretending to be gay in it so that he could live with them?
He had to, because they wouldn't let any men live with them.
Right.
Yeah, George was a very, the landlord, he was a bit, and his wife was better.
I think she knew.
She knew, and she fancied him a bit in the original anyway.
Oh, well, she was a bit of a,
She was a bit of a, Yes. Bit of a slag.
Yeah.
Another one, the George and Mildred was the Ropers.
The Ropers, yeah, which was a spin-off of Three's Company.
And then Robin's Nest, which was called something else over here. I don't know what it was called. I haven't got it down here, but I just remembered Robin's Nest.
Oh, I have no idea.
It was another spin-off.
Huh.
Someone might be able to tell us if they remember.
What it was made into?
It was a spin-off of the guy who.
Oh, I don't know if we had that.
Oh, maybe you didn't. I thought I saw it on the list, but maybe you didn't.
Oh.
The Thick of It was remade as Veep over here.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously a different setting because, it's in the White House.
Yeah, I mean,
can you really say it?
Can you say it's a remake? Yeah.
I mean, because it's slightly different.
Set in politics, and they're both made by the same people.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's really as far as...
I suppose not, yeah. I suppose not, yeah.
They're both... Oh, you guys, if you are into politics whatsoever, even just a little bit, and you have never seen The Thick of It, even if you don't know anything about British politics, but you're interested in politics just a little bit, please watch it. It is so hilarious. And
Peter Capaldi as Malcolm Tucker steals the show.
And it'll really actually teach you about politics quite a lot, actually. And then Veep is the American side of it, Veep being the vice president, which is what they call the vice president, like they call the president POTUS. Yeah, they call the vice president Veep. And it has Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I think you already said that.
Yeah, Julia. Well, no, but you say it.
Oh, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and who's the guy that plays her?
Gary.
Oh my God, they are the best together. They are just so good. Actually, everybody's good. It's a great show. Some people would probably argue that it's run on a bit long, I think, but I enjoy it still. I don't mind.
Yeah, it's really good.
And it's really hilarious, except for the fact that when you're watching it, you're like, you know what? This is too real, and this is really frightening how much this probably actually happens. You know,
I mean, it's very high up in the government over here, you know, the vice president and stuff like that. So it was very high up. In the British version, it was like he was a member of cabinet, a member of parliament, and he was a member of the cabinet. He was minister for something. It was like a fictional department within the British government. And it was just the ineptitude of what, and you know, they had like the chief whip, which was Malcolm Tucker, Peter Capaldi's character, telling him what to say from number 10 Downing Street. You know, giving him the party line and telling him what to do, and them just absolutely screwing it up. And just not doing what they're doing, and Malcolm Tucker coming out with this just like, you know, just complete tirade of F-bombs and everything, you know. It's like it's so much more sweary than Veep, I found. I mean, there was swearing in Veep, but not to the extent that there was in the thick of it. There was just
you feel like the swearing in Veep is a bit extreme, a bit over the top, and not natural. It's
a little bit not. It's like they've tried to insert it, you know, to try and like make it a bit more.
Maybe, but I can see, and actually, I think I've heard that, you know, because it's, you know, there are a lot of women and there are more women coming up, but it was always a boys' club, you know, Washington, D.C. and everything. So it's like, there is a lot of swearing, I think, involved. And to get in on that, the women just join in too. So, I mean, I don't find it over the top. I find it maybe sometimes, maybe some of the phrases, but that's part of the awkwardness too, that they're cussing, but they're just pissed off and they're trying to think of just put downs or just something to say, and it comes out really awkward. They'll just put they'll put the F word with just something really awkward and bizarre, and I think that's part of what makes it funny too, because they're just like, oh, you whatever. You know, it's just, I don't know. Okay, check that out though. It's so funny.
Other ones are the In-Betweeners, which didn't really last too long over here.
Oh, I heard it was terrible.
It was terrible. It was almost a complete verbatim of the script.
I don't understand why it would be terrible then, unless the actors were just terrible.
I think it was an MTV production, I think.
Yeah.
And it was just basically they ripped everything off except put it in America, you know.
Yeah.
But the original In-Betweeners, the British version, is
funny. Yeah.
Very, very funny. Highly recommend you check it out.
For anybody who was ever a teenager, you'll relate, whether you're a boy or a girl.
Yeah. No matter what side of the Atlantic you're on.
Yeah, funny.
Fawlty Towers, that was kind of remade over here as Amanda's with B. Arthur.
No idea what
and I don't think... And then they did it as Pain. I saw Pain. I saw an episode of Pain. I think it came on Channel 4 one night. And I was just like, what is this? And it was a Fawlty Towers ripoff, and it wasn't very good.
Oh, yeah.
And Fawlty Towers is one of Britain's... It's the benchmark for modern British comedy. It only had 12 episodes, but it's hilariously funny. Basil Fawlty, John Cleese from Monty Python. He was like the pretext to like Alan Partridge even.
Yeah.
And David Brent.
Yeah.
And all those kind of people who are just frustrated and you know...
That's a good transition, too, to the Ranker's top list of British sitcoms.
Ranker's top British sitcoms. Number 1 is Fawlty Towers.
Yeah, so Ranker's is a site that...
Well, Ranker.
Ranker, yeah, sorry. It's a site that is just ranks things based on the community that votes, I guess, on different topics, different things, whatever. And so they rank... And it's quite a big community, so you can get a pretty... trustworthy ranking system. You can rate it a pretty trustworthy ranking system. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
The next one they've got is Blackadder, which I consider to be Rowan Atkinson's finest work ever. I mean, he could have retired after that and did nothing, and it would have been, you know, that would have been it.
And explain what Blackadder is.
It's like historical fiction in a sitcom. It's like alternate history of Britain. Then there's Keeping Up Appearances, which is Hyacinth Bouquet or Hyacinth Bucket. You've seen it.
Oh, yeah. I've seen it on PBS over here. Yeah.
And she had a long-suffering husband. She was like from a lower class system, and you know she thought she had aspirations to be higher. Yes.
She called herself
Okay,
Bouquet.
Residence, the lady of the house speaking. Yes. Are You Being Served? Wasn't really a big fan of that, really. It was set in a department store. It was in the 70s, you know.
Oh, yeah.
I'm Free. I remember it, but it was
That's
just like...
That's funny. We have a show set in a department store right now. I wonder if it's called Superstore, I think. It's set in like a Walmart type store.
Yeah, but this was like a more upmarket, like Harrods type place. Oh, right. Yeah, I don't know what it was called. Interesting. Only Fools and Horses, Del Boy and Rodney.
Yeah.
Enough said there, you know. I mean, that was a great show. Father Ted, another great sitcom.
Yeah.
I mean, the Irish and the British have, like, because it was made in Britain. Yeah. But it was like Irish actors.
Yeah.
Set in Ireland, so, you know, it's an Irish sitcom, but, you know. Britain claims it as own. Monty Python's Flying Circus.
That's number 7, but, I mean, can you really consider that
a sketch.
A sitcom?
Yeah, it's like a sketch show, mainly. Yeah.
Huh. I wonder why they included that in their sitcoms list.
I don't know, yeah. The It Crowd.
Number 8 is the IT crowd.
The It Crowd, yeah. The IT crowd, yeah.
The It Crowd, the IT crowd. We're big Richard Ayoade.
Richard Ayoade, yeah.
Love him.
Yeah, he's great.
He's so good.
Chris O'Dowd was in it.
Yeah,
and Catherine
he's
Parker's,
good too. Yeah, I like him.
Vicar of Dibley.
It's a great show. It's really cute.
Yeah, you liked it, yeah.
It's got old people in it, so.
Yes, anything with old people, Erica loves so much.
Number 9.
Absolutely Fabulous.
Yeah, that was big over here.
Edina and Patsy Darling.
That was a bit of like Downton Abbey type popularity.
Yes,
over here,
yeah.
But in the early 90s.
Yeah.
So your top 5 now.
Top 5. My top 5 is Only Fools and Horses.
Okay, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's just great. If you haven't checked that one out, go check it out.
Del Boy and Rodney.
And Grandad, and later
Uncle
on
Albert.
Uncle Albert.
Mm-hmm.
Blackadder is my number 2.
Yeah.
Number 2 is Blackadder. Finest thing that Rowan Atkinson ever did, and that's including Mr. Bean. Father Ted is my number 3. We talked about that one.
Yeah, you love Father Ted.
So do you. You love Father Jack. Father Jack's your favorite character. And number 4 is One Foot in the Grave.
Yeah, that's so good.
It'd be interesting to see what your top 5 British sitcoms are, actually.
Yeah, I'll have to think about it.
Think about that. Number 5, though, is Goodnight Sweetheart, which is a really good show. If you haven't checked that one out, you got to check it out. Lots of Beatles references.
Do we consider that a sitcom? Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, it's a sitcom, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Was it just
time travel. Yeah.
To me, a sitcom is 30 minutes.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, that was my top 5.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a pretty good. I mean, those are all shows that you have shown me and that I enjoy also.
Yeah.
A Blackadder.
Yeah, you're not really.
I don't love it, but I don't hate it either. So, I mean, I
really identify with Edmund Blackadder.
I can probably take it or leave it. I do like the Christmas special though.
Yeah.
That's really good. Yeah. I do enjoy that one. Okay, so Ranker's list then of top American sitcoms. Number 1 was Friends. Yeah.
Show about friends.
Yes. Number 2 was Seinfeld, which I thought it was interesting. Which one was going to rank higher, Friends or Seinfeld?
Seinfeld is another show about friends.
Yeah, it is. Actually, that's funny. Number 3 on their list is The Simpsons, which is an animated sitcom.
Yeah, animated. And
it's not about friends. It's about a family. Yes, because we love our family sitcoms over here.
Yeah, you love your kids and everything. Yeah. Full House, I guess you could call that
The Simpsons, I think, is the longest running sitcom in America.
It's been maybe in the world.
Maybe, yeah. It's been going since, what, 1980? Something like that. Yeah.
There we go. That was huge. I remember being into Bart Simpson when I was a kid.
Yeah. Number 4 is Cheers.
Where Everybody Knows Your Name.
Which is funny. You said you don't know if it came on in Britain.
I think it came on Channel 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would think that would have been popular in Britain because it's about a bar.
Yeah.
And there's love your drinking in Britain.
Yeah, and I mean, in sitcoms in Britain, it's like, there's a lot of, like, stuff that takes place around the pub, so yeah.
Yeah. Number 5 is The Office, The American Office.
Yeah.
Number 6 is The Big Bang Theory.
Yeah.
7 is How I Met Your Mother, which I don't know. I think I've seen 1 or 2 episodes.
1 or 2 episodes. I wasn't really getting into it.
What is that? That was number 8 is That 70s Show, which is funny. I didn't really get super into it either. Number 9 is MASH. Another show I think I mentioned, my grandpa used to watch Sanford and Son. It was like if Sanford and Son or the Jeffersons wasn't on, MASH was on. Always. If he was there anyway. That was what was on television. And then number 10 is Frasier, which is a spin-off from Cheers. Yeah. With Kelsey Grammer as the main star in that one. So okay.
Yeah.
Time for my top 5. Yes. My favorite sitcom of all time, anywhere, all time, is Seinfeld. You cannot get a better sitcom than that. I like Friends, but I definitely would never, ever put Friends above Seinfeld. Seinfeld is the ultimate. It's just hilarious. Number 2 is I Love Lucy. It's just like, it kind of almost rivals Seinfeld, so nope, nothing else is going to go above I Love Lucy. Just classic,
black and white stuff.
Absolutely hilarious.
1950s that sitcom came out.
Yeah.
Desi Arnaz and Lucille Ball.
Yeah. And then number 3 for me is Cheers. I think it was just so different, and the cast was great. It was just, it was really good. And then number 4, I put Friends. And then number 5, I had such a hard time deciding on because there are several that I really like, which include The Big Bang Theory, Roseanne, and Will and Grace. But for me, all 3 of those, it's all about the earlier seasons. Like, they all kind of ran on a bit long, and the later seasons were just not as funny. You know what? I take that back. I put Will and Grace as my top 1, 2, 3, 4. I put Will and Grace as my number 5. I'm Xing it out because I just now remembered Veep, and Veep is freaking hilarious, and Veep is my new number 5. Well, Thank you very much. Goodbye.
There we go. You heard it here first. Erica's number 5 is Veep.
Yes.
Will and Grace is out.
Oh, there's so many, though. Laverne
and it's
Shirley.
Only because of Deborah Messing got snippy with you on Twitter one day. Over Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, she mean tweeted me.
She mean tweeted Erica.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, what are you talking about?
Oh, Deborah Messing.
So that's lost your points there.
Yeah.
Grace.
She's out. Sorry. Yeah, no, I totally forgot about Veep. I don't know. It was just as I was talking, Veep came to mind. So Veep is in there. Everything else is out. But I could have put in Laverne and Shirley or the Dick Van Dyke Show or the Golden Girls. I mean, we really have a lot of funny TV.
Yeah, the Golden Girls, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're quite proud of British TV. I'm quite proud of American TV. We've had a lot. I noticed Gilligan's Island and Bewitched and all of these kind of things that I watched as reruns.
I Dream of Jeannie.
Yeah, I loved all of those shows. I loved all of those shows. And they're all like from the 60s and 70s, but I love them. So, I mean, they all could have been on the list too. But that was my top 5. And I think we've way gone over and we've way run this topic into the ground. Actually, we have not run this topic into the ground. I think we could have probably split this into 2 podcasts.
Yeah, we could have talked a lot more about things. But we'll have to wait and see till the next time. So yes, tweet us, Facebook us, everything.
Oh yeah.
Buy us a coffee so we can take over the world.
Yes, the next episode will also be about television. So if you enjoyed this podcast, do tune in next time.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.